Good evening, everyone. Welcome to November's meeting of the Scrutiny Panel. To run through health and safety fire alarm procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices down the main stairs opposite the lifts in the foyer. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise you when it's deemed safe to return to the chamber. Would everyone present please ensure their mobile phones are turned to silent and they are not used to make or receive calls whilst the meeting is in progress. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting is also being recorded and will subsequently be broadcast on the internet. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No, and we've got no members of the public, so we'll move on from that. I've had no request to speak under 20.1 and no members of the public, so we move on to apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Faruqi, substituted by Councillor Boyd, Councillor Austin, substituted by Councillor Garner, and Councillor Moore, substituted by Councillor Townend. Are there any more apologies? Councillor Curry.
Apologies from Councillor Dabrow.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I've had one declaration of interest from Councillor Packman on item number 9, so we'll address that when we get to that. Okay, moving on to item 3, the minutes of the extraordinary meeting. To approve the minutes of the extraordinary overview and scrutiny panel meeting held on the 19th of September. A copy is attached to the agenda pack. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Pitcher and a seconder. Councillor Davis, and all members agree? Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, to approve the minutes of the overview and scrutiny panel meeting on the 26th of September 2023. A copy is attached to the agenda pack. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Bright.
Sorry, at the item number 479, just a question. Councillor Austin proposed and Councillor Christian Bright seconded that Levelling Up Fund and Town Deal projects updates be presented at all future meetings, I guess, in the form of a Gantt chart. I don't see that in the pack. Do we have a reason for that?
I'd like to give you a reason. I have requested it a couple of times. I haven't had a response from the director whether we're going to get one or not. I know I've spoken to Councillor Austin, who proposed that last time. She's now sent an email, copied me into it today, to Councillor Everett for him to take it up. So hopefully we'll get one next time, but I haven't even had a response from the director. I will take that up as well with the leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Davis. Sorry, Councillor Green proposed. Councillor Davis second. Do all members agree? Just one item from that as well. Councillor Davis, you proposed that presentation that we had with sealing, and so that's one thing we got out for that. Okay, moving on to item 5, the minutes of the extraordinary meeting. To approve the minutes of the extraordinary overview and scrutiny panel meeting held on the 24th of October. A copy is attached to the agenda pack. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Curry and a seconder. Councillor Cupp, and all members agree? Okay, it's moving on to item number 6, the Cabinet Member presentation, the TDC policy regarding broken bins. And I've added in, because I had a member contact me about an issue he thought there was with the green bin renewal policy, although that member hasn't come along this evening, sadly. So I added that in, so I didn't want to call Councillor Elbin back again for a second time, so we've decided to add it together. And I'll call upon Councillor Elbin to give his presentation, which I think you're going to do one at a time, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can't think of a better way to spend a Tuesday evening than to discuss broken bins, Chair. I think it's something that our residents are concerned about, and so what I want to do is to take you through some views that you'll see in relation to what the overall view of how we deal with the bins, the state of the bins, and how many we do. So if I can ask for, that's it, thank you very much, background. As you can see there, the waste team currently collects from over 70,000 properties throughout Thanet. 57,000 of these properties are classed as curbside collections, and as such will have some form of container. Most commonly are 240 litre bins with differing lid colours, as we all know, black for refuse, blue for mix, maybe red bags or red lidded bins for paper and brown for garden waste. Over the course of a fortnightly collection cycle, our crews collect over 250,000 of these containers. We currently operate 2 delivery teams that consist of a sole driver. Right, in the past 12 months, we have received 6,639 reports of damaged bins, wheeled bins. 2,971, which is 45% from the public vehicle call centre, or 3,668, 55% from our staff through the Bartek system. And for those of you who don't know, the Bartek system is situated within the cab of the waste trucks, and they record everything that happens on their round. Other services will be prioritised if we are short-staffed. Bins are delivered Monday to Friday to meet overall delivery demand. New bins, other bins, bags. They have about 35 to 45 jobs per day. Lead time for that is approximately 4 to 5 weeks. Over the last 2 years, £406,750 has been spent on bins, 186,500 in 2022-23, and 220,000 in 23-24, and that's the year to date, at the cost of £19.95 a bin. Bin budget for the period is £296,560, and there is £110,190 overspend to date. Okay, next one. In theory, wheels and lids can be replaced, although it isn't as easy as it would seem. They are made to last, so removing and reattaching parts is time consuming, roughly about 5 to 10 minutes. And I think if you see the amount of return or broken bins, that if you add that up with 5 to 10 minutes, that's quite an amount of time. Bins also change shape over the time, meaning that new parts may not fit. What I mean by that is that obviously, as being plastic, they expand in the summer and retract in the winter, and of course that ends up with the different temperatures and they split. Just to give you an idea of that. Generally all from one company, but they have changed style slightly too. So there's different styles of bins of which the lids will not fit other bins. Bins are currently not repaired due to the issues outlined and time constraints, due to the sheer volume of requests and staff availability. Broken bins are recycled into pellets, and they are used to make more bins. So it's fully recyclable as far as that goes. Okay, repair versus replace. Not all damage to bins can be repaired. The only thing that can be repaired will be damage to the lid or to the wheels. The body and the lip of the bin are not repairable. The lip is the bit that goes onto the back of the truck for it to be tipped in, lid opens up and then it empties. Repairing a broken lid or wheels is a lower cost than a full replacement, but does not lengthen the working life of the bin. The additional time taken to repair a bin would potentially mean the need to employ an additional crew and vehicle to meet demand. So in summary, bins will get broken through a variety of ways. Ultimately, we need residents to have containers for health and safety reasons, environmental factors, and eventually for managing waste disposal behaviour and encouraging recycling. Bin replacements result in an overspend against the annual budget. Current method of dealing with the issue is just for example, is just replacing them, is the most efficient and cost-effective way of addressing the issue. I think if you think to come off line from this just for a second, so if we repair Mrs. Smith's lid, she gets her old bin back with an old lid. It won't last, and it's just as good to replace the bin rather than to repair it. And the same goes for the wheels as well. So pushing back where we don't believe we are responsible for bin damage, upcycling of bins for alternative uses. So that's that on that issue. If you're all right, Chair, I'll just go through the garden waste, unless you want to do questions on that first.
I think I'll ask members if they want to address that first.
Absolutely, Chair.
Members,
Yeah.
that's a subject that you wanted me to pick up, so over to you, Councillor Cohen.
I think it's probably best if we concentrate on the black bins and the blue bins rather than the green waste. Just a question. I understand that the council are not really in favour of repairing the bins, and I've heard the reasons given. Can I ask, if residents do phone in to say that their bin has been damaged during the collection, do they receive a bin free of charge?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The short answer is yes. So if they have proof that the bin has been damaged when it goes it's loaded into the truck, maybe the lid comes off, because it does happen, then they will get a bin free of charge.
Councillor Wing.
Sorry, Steve. I've got 3 questions. So 19.95 is the cost per bin. Is that what we pay? And if that's what we pay, what is the actual cost to resident for replacement? I've got 3 questions, so I'll do a question and then seek an answer if that's okay.
Sorry, if I could just ask Mr. Elmer if he'll come in on that, that'd be a lot easier. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So that is what we pay. 19.95. It's working across other council stuff. That's a good price for it. That's about the going rate. We currently don't charge residents for broken bins when they're replaced.
What do we charge residents if it's not broken, if they just want a new one or it's lost?
I'll have to come back to you, Councillor Wing, if that's all right, to give you the up-to-date. I've got some costs here, but they're not the up-to-date ones. So if I can just come back to you on that. But we do. But it is. I can confirm it is more than 19.95, because that's the price we pay for the purchase of the bin. It doesn't include the cost of unpacking it, delivering it, those sort of things. So there's a cost for transport and those things.
Also, you mentioned broken bins are recycled into pellets to make more bins. How many do we recycle each year?
I can't answer that, so...
In terms of numbers, again, I've not got the number in front of me. Basically, what we do is the broken ones are stored either here or there is a storage place down at the port. When there's enough to have a full load, just for sheer economies, and so we're not paying for any empty space in terms of transit, then a full load goes.
It'd be good to have that information going forward. The other thing is, how many I haven't been to the Margate recycling centre for some time, I would imagine several years, but the last time I was there were black bins. It was like a black bin graveyard. They were stacked, piled high. I'm hoping they've been removed. But how do we presently have bins stored at the Margate depot, broken bins, the bin graveyard, and how many would you estimate that are there?
So just to also just follow up on your previous question, when we collect bins that are broken, they are recycled. So the bin lid is taken off, the wheels are taken off, they are stacked, and then a company removes them for recycling. So we don't dispose of them in any other way. That's the method of disposing of them. I can't tell you exactly how many are there now, but as Matthew has said, they build up, and then we spend some time with staff stripping them down, stacking them up, ready for removal. So there isn't a continuous process of breaking them down as they come in. We wait until there is a number of them where it's worth spending a week of staff time doing that piece of work and then getting rid of them.
So my last question is, and you've sort of partly answered it, you've led me right down the path I wanted to go, was there is an environmental cost, and we have declared a climate emergency, and we already take the bins to bit, has just been confirmed by Mr Humber. So what happens if I'm a resident who has a black bin? I don't, I have a seagull sack, and I want a new, I'm quite happy to have a second-hand lid because I've decided I'm never going to buy anything new again. Can I ring the council and go and collect one from the tip and mend my own bin, which would seem a very good pilot for us to undertake, because the bins are already been stripped down, and obviously the other cost of putting the bin together would just be the resident actually doing it themselves?
I'll answer that one, Chair. The answer is no. They can't come onto the site because of health and safety. Otherwise we'd have public coming up on the site all day, and we can't do that. There's so many lorry movements, etc., and they can't do it under health and safety grounds. I understand what you're saying, and it would be ideal, but we're not a garden shed workshop for people to come up and fiddle about and fix their own bin. We can't do that. It's working environment, and we just can't do that. And if I just for a second, if I can, Mr. Sanham says he can advise us to what the price of a bin to the public is.
So obviously it depends on the size of the bin, but a standard container is £44.55 currently, and the larger container is £57.31, and that includes the cost of admin and delivery and everything else.
So, I mean, I will come back at this, because I can buy the bits for my broken bin on the internet, and we've got a whole store of broken bits. And I think it's worth pursuing some sort of pilot where we could send the bits out, or a safe space where people could collect the bits. Because I certainly wouldn't want a sort of 100% increase in purchasing a new bin from a council that I already pay my rates to. I could understand paying for the cost of the bin. In fact, I'm sure I can buy one online for cheaper than £40. So I definitely feel we've declared a climate emergency. It's really great that we're recycling. We're already taking the bins to bits, and we should be trying to pursue some sort of upcycling of our broken bins.
Can I come back on that, Chair? Thank you. In a perfect world, Councillor Wing, it would be a wonderful thing to actually do. But we're not in a perfect world. We've got to live within the budgets that we've got, and we've got to deal with that. And so, you know, the likelihood of that happening is rare. Let's put it like that.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. While we were looking at the presentation on performance, something jumped out at me particularly, which is that in the whole of 22-23 we had a budget of 186,500, and yet year to date we're only 6 months in, give or take, and we've got a 20% increase to 220 so far. I wondered why that might be.
I'll ask Mr. Humber if he can advise you of that, Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. So the spend isn't linear is the first thing. When we purchase bins, we purchase a large number at a time. So the spend isn't a linear thing. We buy thousands at a time, so we spend. There's a large purchase price. I think it's worth saying that although the slide shows an overspend, that overspend is part of the budget monitoring process, and it's managed within the budget. So we move money around between budgets to make sure that we cover those spends. That said, last year there was an overspend on the service. And this year, if you look at I know the Q2 is budget monitoring is on the agenda here. There is currently a predicted overspend for cleansing services. So there is overspend in the service. But I think in response to that, it's not a linear. We don't spend, a certain amount each month, every month. It depends on when the purchases are made.
So to clarify, how often would these purchases be made? Obviously, if they're not linear, then the frequency of those dictates our value against that delineated time. Roughly, how often do we have orders going in for them? Because it's an amazing figure. That's 130 bins a week being broken.
I think I can come back with that detail. We'll check that detail on how often they are. If you want an accurate answer, I think that's the best thing to do.
Thank you, because I think that's key to actually, looking at the value judgment on this matter, and obviously the very real environmental impact to keep buying plastic. Thank you.
Councillor Cupp.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Most enjoyable about bins, thank you. My question is related to the broken bin pandemic, in a way, across the country. Have we looked at other councils in how they are dealing with this issue? How many broken bins are happening in other districts and authorities as well? And we say that the price that we pay is a good price. Is that because they are lower down in the tier of how robust they are, hence why we're getting so many broken bins? And would it be worthwhile then looking at spending a little bit more on the bin to ensure that then they're less likely to be flimsy and to have a longer lasting life? Thank you, Chair.
I think we said there the average lifespan of any plastic bin that's out in the weather all year round, rain, wind, shine, frost, snow, whatever, is roughly on average about 8 to 10 years. So yes, there are a number, 130, as Councillor Davis has said. But again, when you equate that to 70,000 properties across the island, and the trucks going out every day, and the bashing really that they do take. There are some people who are very nice with their bins and wash them and clean them and do it and love them, but then there are a lot of people who don't. And I think that's the issue. They don't care. So I can't answer, Councillor Cupp, in relation to whether our officers have been looking at other councils as to what they buy, how they buy, because a lot of councils are different. You couldn't compare us with Tunbridge Wells, for instance. They haven't got that tight capacity within the town centres that we got in Ramsgate and Broadstairs, etc., etc. A little bit different in Birchington. Some places in Broadstairs where you've got the bungalows, etc., etc. And they are easier because you've got less people there, less people living in a property where you've got multiple occupancies and stuff like that. The bins are stuffed to capacity and sticking out of them. So they do bowls, they do what. So whilst there is a lot of bin replacements, it's how they're dealt with, and but we have to deal with that. And the main thing is to keep the service going. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Townend.
Yep. Sorry, if I could just add to that as well. Our bins are mainly from one manufacturer, and it's one of the market leaders. So they are, I would say, a good quality bin. But as Councillor Orban has said, it's about the service life of them and the abuse they get, but also that at the rate at which we're replacing them, we're asking them to last longer than that 8 to 10 years, and that's why we need to invest. And we have increased the amount of money we spend on replacement bins, because they do get to a point where if the lip breaks, it becomes a health and safety issue. And that, to be honest, is another reason why, if we repair bins, then we're replacing the lid or replacing the wheels, but we're not replacing the body. And it's the bin body, when it splits and becomes damaged, that you start to increase that health and safety issue, that the bin could potentially drop from the bin lift mechanism on the back of the vehicle, which obviously is a problem because they're quite big and heavy. So the replacement is the frequency of replacement is an issue that we need to keep on top of, and it's an issue that goes is assisted by replacing the bin rather than repairing the bin.
Councillor Thanet.
A couple of things. 1995 is not a lot of money for a bin, as far as I can see. Have you ever worked out, actually, what it costs to actually repair these bins, against just saying, well, we're not going to repair, we're just going to recycle and move on and replace it with a new bin? Because what I can see is we're taking parts from all over the place and putting them on, damaged bins to put them back out into circulation. And the other thing is, so have we ever worked that out, the two things? The other thing is, how many bins have we charged people to replace, the 50-odd quid that Matt has just mentioned? Do you know the figures on that in a year, how much we actually earn out of that, or how many we do?
I'll just answer Councillor Thanet on his first part about the replacing and redoing the bins. I think that without wanting to go over the same old mantra, but if the council would decide to give us more resources, more money to get more staff, so we could have them sitting in the Manston Road depot repairing bins, a bit like Santa's little helpers, then I'm sure that that we could do the recycling of those. But I think you've got to take on board is the fact that it's not comparable currently in officer time, and because we need them to do things that our residents require most, which is emptying their bins and ensuring that the rounds get done, rather than them sitting in the Manston Road depot repairing a couple of lids. As far as the other bit about how many broken bins, I can't give the answer to that. Have you? Maybe Mr. Elmer might be able.
Yeah, it's quite a simple answer. We haven't charged any residents for them.
You ever thought of getting a volunteer team to repair bins, which might be not a bad idea. Some retired guys, I'm not retired yet, unfortunately, but...
Well, it's a shame, because I'd have asked you to have been the first person I'd have asked, Councillor Towning, to come down to the Manston Road depot, get you some steel toe cap boots and a nice white hat, and we'll sit you in a corner and repair the bins for us. And we would love that, so we'll see. We will look at that, Councillor Towning. Thank you.
It's got your name written all over it, Cedric. Councillor Bright.
Yeah, I hope I'm not asking a question that's already been asked. I don't think I have. I'm slightly bothered by the fact that it all ends up in sort of overspend. So when did we first introduce like solid black bins, plastic bins? So is this kind of like wave 2 of the 8 to 10 year life cycle? And is this something we can start thinking about maybe in, 5-10 years time? Do we need to start planning a little bit more so that we might get this? Because I wonder if, to Councillor Cupp's point about the pandemic of broken bins, that this is because basically councils up and down the land shifted from either just bin bags and metal bins to plastic bins at around about the same time.
Thank you, Chair. I can't really answer that, but just so, probably, whether you might know, you might not know, but the government were looking at ensuring that all councils have the same. So if that was to take place, I think they put it on the back burner for now. I think they've got other things that they're worried about at the moment. But that was to be that all bins would be the same at every council. So we would have to replace the whole lot. So knowing whatever government's in power, they wouldn't give you the full amount, then we would have to find that money from somewhere. But I'll refer back to you, Mike, if that's okay. You're right with that? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Orban. I think there's not much to expand on on that. You're right. The Environment Act includes parts of the Environment Act are about waste standardisation. So the container is standardised nationally. I know that that's been pushed back. DEFRA have pushed back the dates for some of the work around the actions from the Environment Act. But yeah, our current bin, the arrangement, the current collection method came out in about 2012, and so yes, you're right that bins have a finite life, but that's why we are increasing, or have over the last 3 years increased the amount of money available for the replacement of bins, so for replacing damaged bins, and obviously we'll continue that investment.
I'm keen to move on. So just take two more. I was going to say Councillor Wing and Councillor Davies.
Mine's a quick one. I'm assuming we do charge some people for bins that are not broken, so people who move into new places, new developments. I don't mind ripping the developers off. That's fine. Charge them more than 50. But what do we do with the extra cost? I would love for it to come back into waste and recycling teams so that we can make other things happen outside of our normal budget.
I think that's a Mr. Sanham question, I think, is that?
So effectively in relation to new developments at the moment, so we do charge on an ad hoc basis. There'll be a few people that obviously say they don't want a red bag anymore, can they have a red bin? That's chargeable at the moment, so they pay for that. So to date, there's over 30k that's been received in relation to income from mostly new developments. That is used to offset the additional cost of bins across, so that it reduces the impact on service. So it does directly go into cleansing services to offset that impact. So the net impact this year, if you're talking about 100 odd grand overspend, is part of that is offset by that income.
Councillor Davies.
I'll be incredibly quick, but my question, and you probably won't have the answer to hand, but is what is the ratio between bust bins of the smaller capacity and the larger? Because, as has been mentioned, the ones we see broken are often overflowing, and it's because they've been rammed. If there's no great cost implication, so where my question would lead is, perhaps I could recommend looking at, if there's no great cost implication, just sticking with the larger size bin as a standard, and on that basis, because it is the smaller households I've noticed that often have, and along comes someone else, it only needs one bag rammed in, and Bob's your uncle. The bigger bins do seem to mitigate that. Just a thought, and just to finish, because we are on Bingate, I know, but floppy horrible seagull bags, do we have a budget for loss on those? How do they fare? Are they a problem, other than in terms of existence?
Yeah, I think Mr. Humber will answer your first question, Councillor Davies. On the seagull bins, bags, I mean, they're not the nicest of things to have for any resident. They are used, especially like in Ramsgate, a lot. Where there's a lot of multiple occupancies or properties being converted into several flats, and the issues that we do have are that people leave the bags out, they leave them on the railings and everything like that. It's not the nicest of view, but then again you have to understand that people don't want a dirty great big bag with a load of rubbish in stinking their particular flat out until it's time for them to be collected. I don't think we have that many replacement bags coming out, because normally they're outside on the railings and they're tied up to them and full up of rubbish. But I would imagine it's quite low, but I haven't got any figures on that for you.
Perhaps if I can come back on the first part of your question, Councillor Davies. What we're always trying to do is encourage recycling. So we're happy to provide a blue bin and an extra blue bin if there's lots of recycling going on at a property. What we don't want to do is increase the size of black bins, so they're always 180, and we would like them to be smaller. And going forward with the requirements of the Environment Act, which will make it compulsory to recycle things like food waste, and there'll be other waste streams coming on, that black bin needs to get smaller, because that's the way that we will drive the percentage of recycling up, by stopping people having the choice. And what we know now, when we do analysis of what is in the black bin, some of that can be recycled. And it's about changing that behaviour. And one of the ways of doing that is to reduce the size of the black bin, not just in Thanet, nationally, so that we encourage that recycling action.
Was that a quick one, Christian?
I'm going to say that if you're interested, Councillor Britch has just found a website called binbutler.co.uk that gives you the full history.
Okay, so we're going to move on. So, I mean, who'd have thought that would be that interesting? Councillor Elbin, we're going to now look at the green bin renewal policy for households.
I mean, if you're happy, Chair, as the member who decided that they wanted to talk about this isn't here, I mean, obviously I don't know what they've done, so this presentation is purely put together as to what we do, effectively. So as you can see, the service runs fortnightly, predominantly on 2 vehicles. This increases to 3 in the summer, from April the 1st to 31st of March following year. It's a paid-for service, which costs £67.50 for 2023-2024, and provisionally £71.50 for 24-25. That would be being put into the budget and etc., which you'll probably be looking at later. We currently have 12,374 customers across Thanet. We did just over 136,000 successful collections last year. We had 1,077 reported missed collections. September 22nd to August 22 to August 23, we collected 4,241 tonnes. So it's quite a large amount. This is near the capacity for the current deployed resource. So in other words, for the amount of staff that we have to be able to do this, which then would not affect other collections, we're near enough at capacity for how much that we can take on. Renewals are sent out in February, and a reminder in March prior to the renewal date. There are no direct debit options to make processing the renewal payments simpler. And that's all I've got for you, as I wasn't sure what you wanted, Chair. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I think the issue he had was there was something to do with the opening date for payment, and the closing date was very short, and I think the direct debit option, I think, was an issue for maybe someone who's older. That was what it was. But I hope Councillor Warrow is watching and he's got his question answered.
I would say, Chair, we are open to looking at that and to see whether it's practical or not. That's something we'll take on board, Chair, and have a look at.
Thank you, Councillor. So, members, any questions? Councillor Bright, Councillor Wing.
So this is actually quite dear to my heart, because I lost my green bin after about, not lost as in mislaid, the service was withdrawn after about 10 years of having it. My whole street and the surrounding area, we lost our round. I believe the reason is because the truck is slightly wider than the standard truck. Is there any chance of getting additional vehicles with an additional spec, or because I just think at the moment people are putting leaves and green waste in landfill, they're taking it to the dump, or they're just putting it in their bins, and I don't think we should be recycling or binning leaves when it's not particularly good for the environment. So I wonder if there's a future where I might be able to get my green bin back.
Okay,
Who's answering you?
Yeah, the future is green, and we are about to purchase a new vehicle for green. I do believe it's just got a smaller wheelbase, so it should be able to get around the smaller streets.
Councillor Wing.
Yeah, I think it's oversubscribed. I haven't got a green bin because I've got no garden, unfortunately. But I do know several of the residents in Central Harbour also had their green bins removed from them. Some of them really upset about it, and some of them elderly people who've got no way of getting to the tip. They don't have transport, and one was told and undertook quite a battle with TDC because they were told there was access issues, and this particular address there are clearly no access issues because it's right at the top of Elms Avenue and the property just faces you. There might be access issues further down which hinders the round. Should we not be looking at this as a growth area, of an area that if we can grow, then we can, pardon the pun, we can actually make some money and recycle that money back into the system. And also, I mean, I've been heavily involved in removing large amounts of leaves from a place where I work, and we put some of those leaves onto the garden beds, and leaves provide two issues for some of the beds we have. A, they suppress the weed growth. B, they create an environment for insects. And there's a third one. And C, they actually replenish nutrients into the ground. So should we not be looking at growing this area and looking at other ways of maybe distributing some of the stuff, the green waste that we, particularly leaves, that our street cleaners clear up, and putting those on some of our beds?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did already say, you know, if the council wants to give us more money, then if you can persuade them to do that, Councillor Wing, through the due processes, yeah, then we can employ extra staff, and then we can get an extra vehicle, and we can go around and we can expand the delivery and pickup process. But apart from that, I'm sorry to hear about the lady that you're talking about, and I would say, get her to contact us. No, well, get her to contact me then. Get her to contact me, and we'll see what we can do. Happy with that.
Councillor Patman.
Yeah, thanks. We talk about money, but just looking at the screen, we make about £800,000 a year on income. What do we do with that?
We spend it on the service.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Garner.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm interested to know actually what happens to the 4,241 tonnes of green waste that's collected. Where does it go, and is it composted? I assume it is composted. And then how is that compost made available, used after it's composted?
I'll ask Mr. Humber to be able to answer that better.
Okay. Yeah. So all of our we're the Waste Collection Authority. KCC are the Waste Disposal Authority for most of our waste streams. So they go to a waste transfer site. For garden waste, which is a non-statutory part of the service, that also goes to a waste company, and it is processed. So it is garden waste is composted. What they do with it after that is it's a commercial enterprise. So that then goes on to be used for commercial use, composting use. But yes, that's what happens to it. So it isn't landfilled or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, it's worth saying that of all of our waste from Thanet, a very small amount of that is landfill. Most of it is either burnt waste for energy or it's recycled.
Can I just? Yeah, I'm sure I wasn't thinking it was landfill, but in another part of the council, there's a team that do a lot of gardening, not as much as they used to be, but still do a lot of gardening that I assume use compost in places, or could do with using compost. I was just this isn't available to them. I was sort of wondering, why can't we have our own compost facility on one of our sites that we could collect waste that maybe not on the green bins here, but we could collect compostable material and then recycle it and reuse it in each of the open spaces team reuse, or even make it available to sell. So lots of people want to buy compost.
Yes, in theory we could. That's what you're talking about is a capital project which would require capital expenditure to do it, and would require a business case behind it. But yes, it's something that can be considered. Yeah.
Councillor Thanet.
Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked listening to Councillor Bright talking about the fact that the lorry doesn't go up his road any longer. We spent a lot of money buying new bin lorries. Surely that should have been taken into an account to actually get a lorry that would have covered his needs or other people's needs. Why on earth didn't that happen? What was so wrong with our thinking at the time? Could you tell us, please?
I'll try and answer that for you, Councillor Townend, and that is normally, as with any of our waste collections, and including the green waste, if it's in small roads, narrow roads, where there are vehicles parked either side, the vehicles can't get down. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but now we're spending more money to buy a vehicle to go down those roads. Surely the cars are still parked on that road, so what's the difference? Tell me.
The difference, as you've heard, is that it's got a smaller wheelbase. So where a normal truck, you're talking that wheelbase is coming in, and they should be able to get down. But even so, if people park on corners and stuff like that, it would still be a problem, whether you've got small, even sometimes, as you know, we all know, fire engines, ambulances can't get down streets. So, when it comes to a waste truck, whether it be normal waste or green waste, sometimes there are problems. But we're hoping, replacing the old truck with a new truck, that won't happen, and that we will be able to get around in without any problems. Other than that, we'll just have to get a hover one which goes over the top of the cars. We will try that.
Okay, any further questions? Can I just ask, do we make a surplus on the subscriptions, or is that just to cover the service, or do we make a loss? Or?
So it goes back into the service, I think, is the answer. So overall, the income and expenditure of the cleansing services needs to balance, and it's one of the income areas that helps to fund the service.
So I'm pretty sure, did I not hear a government policy that green waste would have to be a free collection going forward?
That was part of the Environment Act, but it's now been removed.
Okay, all left to do is thank Councillor Alban for coming along, giving this presentation and such an interesting couple of subjects. Okay, moving on. Thank you,
Chair. Can I just say thank you to you, Chair, and thank you to the members for their questions. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Right, moving on to item number 7, the Budget Monitoring 2023-24 report number 2. And I call upon Matt Sunham for his presentation.
Presentation might be overdoing it a little bit, but yeah, I haven't got slides or anything. So this budget monitoring report provides the 23-24 Q2 budget monitoring position for the General Fund, capital forecast against budget, as well as housing revenue account. The key financial messages contained within the report with regards to the General Fund are that currently net spending is forecast to be approximately £1.2 million over budget, which is largely due to an anticipated overspend on temporary accommodation for homelessness and a shortfall against some of our income streams as identified at section 2 of the report. Overspend is not unusual at this time of the year, and this does not raise any serious concerns about the finances as a whole. All budgets will continue to be regularly monitored to ensure the Council's expenditure remains wherever possible within the agreed budget. The key financial messages with regards to the housing revenue account is that we are forecasting a £1.4 million surplus against the budget, which is mainly due to better returns on our HRA investment balances and reduced debt charges. With regards to the capital programme, the key message here is at 6.5 and 6.6 of the report that there are some recommended changes to the capital programme that were agreed by Cabinet, included but not limited to increasing the budget for disabled adaptations in our residents' homes following the receipt of additional external funding.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Members, any questions? Councillor Davis.
It's actually in Budget Monitoring Report, Part 2, Section 2.2, Part 3, to bring your attention, because the pages aren't numbered, so sorry if that sounds convoluted. However, I'm a little bit concerned that we're running on some false expectations in certain areas, because this section refers to maritime and technical services, and I'm going to move across a couple of berths from my normal area of interest. Income is projected 369,000, lower than budget expectations within port operations. This is due to restricted opportunities in part stemming from a global shortage of parts, etc., but it refers to income generated through car importation and vehicle storage. Why are we expecting anything to happen on that basis this year when there haven't been any car imports other than 1 year during the pandemic when it was used as an or a backup facility? I'm confused because we're surely not putting into budget things that are and just sitting and hoping.
There is the port and harbour budgets within there. There is effectively an income target for ad hoc income that's generated as and when through new opportunities. In the past, part of that has been offset by opportunities with regards to car importation and storage. It's been offset with things like generator storage. It's been offset by things that we don't normally base budget, like the jack-up barge being in place. So when those opportunities don't arise or are not forthcoming, which we obviously have no control over, it has the potential to have an impact on the monitoring position with regards to income. However, should an opportunity arise during the course of the year through new opportunities, that would be used to offset that income stream. That has been the case for probably the last 5 or 6 years with regards, well, longer than that actually, with regards to the way that that budget is represented within the reports.
Thanks, Matt. This is very interesting because maybe we're drilling down to where we get told numbers work differently on ports and in Ramsgate when we've questioned the losses in the past. I think I'd just like to recall for the record that I think it's quite incredible that we've got income expectations based on potential windfall and not on any firm projections. So, but thank you for clarifying that.
I wouldn't say it's just based on windfall. Every single department within the council that has an income stream expectation will obviously suffer a degree of risk based on market, and that has an impact. At the moment for the Port and Harbour, that's represented by that 369 against their total income allocations for the year.
Sorry, Matt, it's not the principle that I'm questioning of that, and obviously that needs to be accounted and budgeted for in expectations. It's the fact that we're predicating and expecting that budget to sort of, and hoping it will bring in things that are just not necessarily, well, they're certainly not there. I know that justifies that being in the budget, but that's what I'm a little bit concerned about. But thanks for explaining that, and it's something we'll be looking into. Cheers.
Councillor Wing.
It's just that obviously homelessness has really badly impacted and continues to impact despite the fact we put additional monies in. First of all, is it driven by a greater number of homeless people appearing on our streets, or is it driven by an increase in evictions, or is it a combination of the two?
It is effectively a combination of. It's the perfect storm for homelessness at the moment. It's all over the news, isn't it, in terms of potential recent changes in terms of legislation and stuff and how that is treated. We are no different to any other council, and I think Chris Blundell said this previously in various presentations that he's done, is that for district councils, homelessness is the equivalent of social care because it's a massive cost implication that we have zero control over. What we have done is we've put multiple things in place to try and manage the impact of that, including the current budget proposals for next year are looking at opportunities in relation to another version of Foy House, if you like, so that we can start continuing to control to some extent the costs associated with homelessness. The problem is it's obviously we've put measures in place early to try and mitigate the impact of increased cost of homelessness, and if we hadn't have brought those forward into 22-23, which is what we did, they would be far more significant in 23-24 than they are at the moment. It's just every time we put measures in place to deal with the impact as is, something new changes and the volumes increase exponentially, and we've got no control over that.
Am I right in thinking that the main cost is temporary accommodation, and so the purchase of our own property will help that to some extent, but like you say, the problem then just gets bigger. I would like to thank the teams for doing all they can, because you know, from a ward councillor's point of view, we are seeing less people on the streets, but obviously there's a bigger problem, so our teams are doing all they can. I just wanted to ask about the port as well. Do we have final costs for berths 4 or 5? So I'm moving on from homelessness to a homeless berth. And will there be any required costs for... I don't believe berth 4 or 5 is operational, and I do believe there are some electrical work to do. So are we coming to the end of the absolute final spend on berths 4 or 5? And how are the ongoing issues with the bridge impacting on the costs of the harbour, trying to get that bridge up and running, because it's been several years, hasn't it, to try and deal with that problem?
So to start with berth 4-5, so our works on the berth are complete. So that is, the works are finished, including the electrical work. That's finished, and that's effectively now available for use by Brett Aggregates. The final account is not complete yet, so I can't report on that. And when it is, I'm sure we will do so, but that's still not complete. In terms of the bridge, yes, the bridge. We're talking about the bridge on the crosswall was out of service last year due to hydraulic issues. It was put back in service, and now it's out of service again while some more repair works go on. The plan for that is that it will be back in service before Christmas or very soon after Christmas, but we're hoping for it to be back in service before Christmas. And in terms of the funding for that, the work last year was in part of last year's budget, but the work this year, the plan is to recover that cost from the contractor who did the works initially.
Could I just ask, because we all know that there's a conveyor, that Brett's may well put a conveyor on that berth. Are we absolutely certain that there will be no additional cost to us in locating that conveyor onto that pontoon going forward?
So that's for Brett's. It's their plant. So we provide the berth under the facilities agreement, and Brett's provide the conveyor.
I don't want to stray too far away from the agenda, so if you try and keep to the item.
Simply to highlight the fact that, and funnily enough, it links to Councillor Wing's comment about conveyors. I'm still questioning why we spent anything on this, because Brett's were moored off of the berth, off of the quayside the other day, discharging directly onto the quay. So I think this is all worthy of note, but that's not, as you said, I won't distract, but there are further issues.
Okay, so members, any further questions, Mr. Sanham? Councillor Butcher.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, recently there's been the announcement. Sorry, yes, Matthew. Recently there's been the announcement that the expected level of inflation has dropped. Would that have an effect reducing the expected overspend? That'd be minimal.
In simple terms, no. It's because of the way the budgets are built, there's a certain expectation in terms of what we will do to mitigate the impact. So every time we build the budget, we build in based on inflation that we know at that time, and we obviously, if it drops, it's kind of within the realms of just managing those budgets in totality. There isn't, even though it's a significant drop in where we are, it's not below what our assumptions were in relation to what the average inflation would be for the forthcoming year. So therefore, we end up neutral, if you like. There's no significant savings as a result. There is a potential for cost avoidance, because obviously, as inflation comes down, some of the costs that we were expecting to exceed may not, but not significant enough to deliver savings, if you like.
No, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Sannon's report has got to go off to Cabinet. Do we have any recommendations we'd like to make? No. So if none, then we'll note the report. Thank you, Mr. Sannon. Okay, moving on to item number 8, the adoption of a combined surveillance CCTV stroke image recording technologies policy. Long way. I'll call on Mr. Geddes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do promise to be brief. CCTV and the use of image recording is now commonplace across the country, from town centre CCTVs to building securities to cameras on dashboards or dash cams, ring doorbells and mobile phones. The Council's use of CCTV is governed by a profusion of legislation, codes of practice and central government guidance. New and emerging technologies and capabilities such as the increase in artificial intelligence, biometrics or advances in IT system integrations must consider the increased risk to individual rights and their privacies, and we must ensure that the Council continues to be compliant in its activities. In response, the Council has developed this policy, which is intended to regulate all the Council's operations and use of all image recording systems across all areas of the Council. The policy also introduces a series of minimum standards as a guide to all departments planning to procure or utilise these types of technologies in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Oof. Okay. Oh, Councillor Bright.
Sorry, not getting away with that one. So once we've got someone's image, regardless of whether they're up to no good or not, or we just give it, where is it stored?
It's stored digitally in the CCTV control room. Images are stored for a maximum of 31 days, unless used as part of for evidential disclosure. If it's disclosed to an investigatory agency such as police, it's handed over to them, becomes their responsibility. If it's produced for them and not handed over for any reason, it's not collected, it's retained for a maximum of 90 days and then destroyed.
And once it is used, is there a sort of trail that, if, for example, someone that looked like me did something wrong, and it kind of went up the chain, would I be able to trace that data from yourselves onto the police and know that it was destroyed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Green.
If a department wants to do this process, at what level of the organisation would they require authorisation from to do it?
Thank you for your question. That's dependent upon the system and the responsible manager. The policy covers different types of cameras and different systems and different levels of responsibility, but ultimately all new CCTV systems, the CCTV service will have to have line of sight of them to ensure that they're suitable for use within the district.
All right, I'm not sure. Does that mean that senior management would have to authorise it, or cabinet, or what level?
It's dependent upon the level of the procurement and the level of spend. So for a small system, for an office, for example, if it's £30,000, the appropriate managers would take that decision. If it was for a large system or a replacement of a large system, you know, something over the £250,000 threshold, it would become in its own right a key decision and would have to come back here.
It depends purely on cost, not on what the system's being used for.
The policy does cover the use of system. So what the system's intended purpose for, once again, it's dependent upon the different types of system. There is an audit trail in place which is written into the policy, which allows appropriate managers or the CCTV team to have oversight and look and to ensure that a camera's been used for its intended purpose.
Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for your fast presentation, Eden. Could you tell members, do we still have the temporary mobile CCTVs, or are they all in permanent positions?
Yes, we do have a number of temporary CCTV cameras, or redeployables as we refer to them. They are coming to the end of their life, so as one comes to the end of contracts currently, we're not replacing them. What we are doing now is we're trialling a number of new providers of redeployable CCTV systems and looking at the policy. The use of redeployable CCTV is what we're going to be looking at more into the future instead of the use of fixed systems.
Thank you.
Councillor Patman.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, very quick question. Are our CCTV manned 24 hours a day?
No. It records, sorry, I'm being flippant. The system records 24 hours a day. Currently, the control room, when it's in operation, is manned for 20 hours a day. So there's nobody in the control room between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. When we looked at the research and the available budget for systems, we looked at the number of incidents that were covered in that time frame. That was traditionally the quietest time of the day for incidents to occur, and that's when we have nobody in the control room, but all the cameras continue to undertake tours and record.
Sorry, so through you, Chair, to go back. So that's great. So they are monitored out of those hours, out of those. So I'm just thinking of like Ramsgate on a Friday night, you know, they are being monitored, and police are in constant contact with you guys to make sure that they're deploying when there is trouble.
Yes, that's correct. We do have access to the police airwave system, so we're in direct contact with the police. We also have the ability to push the images that we gather to the police control room as well.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Councillor Wing.
I think you've answered my question. So can the police access our system? And I'm assuming we can't access the police system, because having the police gaining access to as many CCTV cameras across Thanet helps, obviously.
The police have access to the cameras that we give them, but that we also have a programme that we're developing to allow police officers to undertake activities within the control room. Within the environment of the MTF, we've started on a programme to train additional people to undertake some of those monitoring activities. As to police themselves, they don't routinely monitor their own cameras anyway.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make an offer to Overview and Scrutiny about visiting the control room? So if we set up some times to do some tours of the control room, would members be interested in that? I can see lots of nodding heads. So we'll sort that out and put something in place.
Excellent, Penny, thank you. Members, any further questions? No? Okay, so that report will go off to Cabinet. Do we make any recommendations? Councillor Green.
Maybe I'm concerned unnecessarily, but I would like Cabinet to look at the authorisation process. So the departments need to get authorisation to use these cameras, which are becoming increasingly powerful tools. And we don't want them springing up everywhere without authorisation and recording where they are and what we're using them for.
Okay, do we have a policy on that, Penny?
That's exactly what this policy talks about. So the way the policy lays this out is that the cameras can't spring up anywhere. We have to follow the codes of practice and the legislation. In terms of sign-off from Cabinet on every installation we do, that's probably a little bit over the top in terms of guidance, but we can definitely talk about having some senior management if we need to. But the policy clearly lays out where cameras can be put in place. Not anyone can access them. I think that's something we need to make quite clear tonight. They can only be accessed by authorised personnel. So we can't allow anyone into the room. The room's locked, and those that can review it are the police. And then often what happens is if a piece of CCTV footage is required by somebody internally, if they have the accreditation qualification, they can view it themselves. If not, the team review the footage for the time period, find the incident, and then the incident gets passed on to the people that require it. So it's very controlled in that respect. But hopefully that will help a little bit, Councillor Green.
Does that cover your
Not
concern?
really, because what I'm worried about is cameras being installed for one purpose purpose and then being used for another by a...
We aren't allowed to do that. So, and that's laid out quite clearly in the policy. We are only allowed to install them in areas where we have a known need. And I think, sorry, Eden, the proportionality, I'll let Eden come in with the exact wording.
There's an entire commissioner set up for the usage of CCTV, and contained they've got 12 minimum standards that they apply to us in government authorities. We have to undertake a proportionality assessment before we undertake any camera installation. In fact, we get requests for cameras on a near weekly basis, sometimes from elected members, often from members of the public. Can you install a camera here? We have to look at a raft of different things. We have to look at crime rates, we have to look at the area's demographics, we have to look at any sort of requirements before we can even consider installing any form of CCTV system at all. To not do that would be considered a breach of the Commissioner's codes of practice and would mean that the District Council is liable. The policy is specifically set up to prohibit the introduction of new CCTV on an ad hoc basis or in an area where it's not required.
Does that answer your concern, David?
Sorry, but when you've done all this, who then decides that what you're proposing is proportional?
So that would come to myself as head of service or to the director to do that final sign-off.
Would that be recorded? Who's made that decision?
Yes.
Okay, so no recommendations to Cabinet. Are we happy with that? I think it's a national policy. I don't think we're doing our own thing here. I think there's a national standard that we all have to abide by. Councillor Bright.
So we had a situation in Broadstairs where a CCTV camera was damaged, and there was a request from the previous iteration of the council to replace that, but actually it hasn't been replaced because of the policy that Penny's talking about, in that the need for it wasn't demonstrable. So in terms of crime rate, in terms of positioning, it just wasn't necessary. So I think that is it's the policy framework that is actually preventing the return of that CCTV camera. So I think, I did look at the policy at that time and understood that to be what it means.
Councillor Wing.
I think, David, it's all governed by GDPR as well. So, I mean, there are huge penalties. It's all sort of reversed so that the person operating the system, the information that's collected and the person that's operating the system, there's clear guidance of what you can do and what you can't do with the information you gather. So I feel quite confident that the council's doing all the due diligence necessary to operate a safe system.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Cupp.
I just wanted to echo what Councillor Wing has said, and I think that I'm certainly comfortable with the process that the council is undertaking with the CCTV, and the procedures that are in place I think are sound, and obviously it's policy compliant, and that's the most important thing. I appreciate that with these things there is sometimes a need or a caution to over-police, but I don't think this is necessary because the policies are in place to make sure process is followed correctly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it leaves me to thank Mr. Geddes, and anybody who doesn't realise the new members, he is our Enforcement and Multi-Agency Task Force Manager. So thank you for coming along and presenting your report. We'll send that off to Cabinet. Okay, moving on to item 9, the purchase of 24 homes at Tothill Street, Minster, for affordable rent. I've had a declaration of interest from Councillor Packman, who is going to leave us for 5 minutes. And I call on Ms Jackson to present her update.
Thank you. The Council has recently approved an accelerated affordable rented housing development programme of at least 400 new homes constructed or acquired by 2027. Officers were contacted by BDW Homes, Barrett's, who are required to deliver 24 new affordable homes as part of their development at Tothill Street, Minster. This requirement is set out in the Section 106 obligations for the development. They have been unable to secure an affordable housing provider to deliver these homes. The capital cost for the 24 homes is 3.2 million and 50k for associated costs. Paragraph 2.5 of my report shows the cash flow deficit from year 1 of 30.99k with a break-even point in year 15. As the homes have been designed as affordable homes in the planning consent and Section 106 agreement, they have been designed specifically for that purpose and accordingly are considered appropriate for the HRA in line with the needs of the households on the Council's register of those living and for those living in temporary accommodation. There is a significant level of need for one beds as well as for larger family homes. The unit size for this development are 8 times 1 bed units and 16 times 2 bed units. It is proposed that the new homes are let in accordance with the Council's adopted allocations policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for Ms Jackson? Councillor Garner.
Hi, thanks. Just a confirmation, really. These homes in Tothill Street, this is a new development, isn't it? That hasn't actually started yet. So this is from the planning consent that was given at planning committee in June of this year. Yeah, okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. So normally what happens, I believe, is that the development is completed, and while it's being completed, the developer looks to find a housing association to take them on. And when they can't take them on, they come back to us to say, we haven't found anyone for it, we give you some money, or in this case, but so have they've gone through that whole process of looking since June, not found anyone. So one point is that's quite concerning, that it looks like housing associations aren't looking to take any affordable homes on. My other issue here is, because I remember this planning application, so this isn't necessarily an issue for you, I don't think, but it's an issue for planning, because I've just been double checking this. So this planning application was the reserved matters for phase 1 of the development there to deliver 133 of the 214 homes being built. And when we heard this at planning committee, I'm on the planning committee with one or two others here, I think. The report stated that 30% of the affordable of these homes would be affordable. That equated to 40 homes that would be affordable units. Now, of those, 70% would be for rent. That's 28, and then 30% for shared ownership, that's 12. So it seems since the planning consent was given in June and we agreed 28 for rent, that's now been turned into 24. So we've lost 4 affordable homes for rent. Now, do you happen to know what's happened to them? It seems like they've been lost in translation. Now, whether that means there are now 16 shared ownership, then I guess that's one of that could be considered fair enough. But I mean, as we're all aware, our need is for more affordable homes for rent. So, I know it's not, as I say, I don't think it's necessarily for you, but it would be. I would like to know what's happened to those 4 homes that could have been added to our housing stock and been offered to rent for people on the housing list. They seem to have been lost. I mean, I won't make any political points about affordable homes being lost and developers coming back and and changing their agreements.
Yeah, so if I can just come back on that. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. No RPs are delivering anything less than probably 100 units on sites at the moment. They're not interested in delivering Section 106 sites because they don't get any grant from Homes England, which we have fed back to Homes England. So that's why, and as you know, Barratt's are quite active in Thanet at the moment. They're kind of, you know, they're doing the Hayne Road site as well. So, yes, we have seen evidence that they've tried to contact RPs and nobody is interested, and I have also spoken to RPs separately as well. With regards to the 4 units, I will confirm that with Ian Livingston and come back to you on that. They won't have been lost, there'll be something.
You have more confidence in some of the developers than I do. Any opportunity to lose affordable homes seems to be taken. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Hi, Ashley, and as you know, I welcome anything that removes people from our housing list. Relieves people from being on the housing list, let's say. I do have a couple of questions, and it may, again, not be for yourself, because you're implementing a policy here, but there's a couple of concerns, and I know they're shared by some of my colleagues who are not necessarily in the chamber or are. We have this accelerated policy to deliver 400 homes over a 4-year period. In 4 or 5 months, I think we're up to 70 odd so far. It is a peaky time in the market and things. There's just concern that because of the cost of borrowing and so on at the moment, and I know the matrix shows them coming into wiping their face after 15 years, should we really be, you know, at the pace we're at because, you know, we're actually ahead of policy effectively, or is there a good reason? Because what concerns me a bit is, for example, the report says that Barratt's came to the council. Thank you for confirming that, you know, housing associations and alternative providers had been contacted, because there is a risk factor there, which is, you know, it'd be quite easy for them to come along and the tail to start wagging the dog. Oh, we can't find anyone. We've got our way with the planning application. But now, again, it works for the time being at the moment. And if I say it's absolutely paramount that we get people out of temporary accommodation, you'll know exactly what I mean, I'm sure. But I do question the haste, and I think there's concerns about, you know, whether we could be getting better value out of this. The other thing, by the way, this isn't built yet. We've got sites like Pegwell Bay View, which is, I don't know if it's Town and Country or someone, but sites like that have got they've gone 100% affordable. Should we perhaps not be prioritising talking to people like that before we take on stuff being built on green sites, even though they're allocated?
Okay, so yeah, I appreciate that there has been a number of sites that I think I've come to every ONS probably since September to bring a site. This is the last one at the moment. These are sites that have been sort of been brewing for a good 6 to sort of 12 months. We knew they couldn't get. They were kind of at the end of their tether, trying to find a provider. So, yeah, I agree. We're certainly not in competition with any RPs. Absolutely not. I will only step in at the last minute if I would much rather that Town and Country delivered it, or Orbit, or anyone like that. It's yeah, we are the last resort, to be honest. I'm not actively rounding everything up. These are just coming to me saying, I don't know what else to do. What can we do? So I don't have any other sites in the pipeline to come forward for now. So yeah, I do appreciate it's actually been 92 since July. So it is a lot. And obviously on top of that, we've got our development as well. And so, you know, sort of in about 6 months, we'll be about 150.
It's excellent to hear in terms of relieving the pressure on the housing, Ashley, so please don't misunderstand. And I think, you know, from what I've said before, I'm a much bigger fan of producing it ourselves than having a third party in the mix. But if that's the case, and by the way, a couple of the deals do appear to be incredible value, so I'll congratulate you on what you settled on there. But thank you for clarifying it, as I say, because a lot of people have been concerned that we're just diving headlong down a path. Thank you.
Councillor Bright.
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate you on this one as well. I think I may have missed the section where you're talking about the costs and the rate of the deal itself, which is what Councillor Davis just referred to. So I'm assuming my first question was that we're really happy with the deal we've got for these properties.
Yeah, so yeah, I work with finance colleagues. We run the figures through sort of a business case. They kind of give me a maximum that I can go to, and yeah, we negotiate on that basis. And this has been in line with the other ones that we've delivered.
Thank you. And do we have a timeline on, again, referring to the previous question, we've got 96 properties essentially that are kind of up and running or ready to go. Do we have a timeline on when we can actually start to expect to be getting that value back? Because obviously, or getting that rent in, because obviously the sooner we get that rent in, the sooner it starts to pay for itself, and we can all be very pleased with ourselves.
Yeah, so the only one that's currently due for completion soon and handed over to us is the Spitfire Green site, which is the Barrett's one, Hayne Road. All the other ones that I've bought haven't even started yet. So Reading Street, Northwood Road, and this one, obviously, this one's due to start on site in the new year. So we're looking at a 12-month build, at least.
Councillor Wing?
I was also on the planning committee when this application came in, and one of the main concerns we had was the issues with water provision and sewerage provision on site, and I think it was agreed that there would be no hookup allowed until there was some sort of arrangement with Southern Water to ensure that hookup could be safely made, given the extreme situation of sewerage and waste in Minster and at the Weatherleys treatment plant. So certainly that's something I'd want us to look into, because we don't want houses with no hook up to a system. That definitely needs looking into. Also, can we guarantee that those houses are delivered to the same standard and quality as every single housing on that housing estate? The last planning committee I was on, and it wasn't this application, I was really shocked to see the social housing squashed in the worst place on the site, smaller units, clearly creating division between the haves and the have-nots on that site. I'd much rather, I think we'd all much rather see that people in social housing were given the same quality housing, and that were actually dispersed so that they felt part of the whole housing development, rather than the terrible bit in the corner. And how many of these units would be disability friendly or age proofed, and are there any expectations to put energy saving energy solar panels on the roof, grey water harvesting, all the things that can help people on low income sustain living in a rented accommodation?
So just with the, I'll check the water thing with you. I'll come back to you on that as well. But just with regards to the where the units are on the site, they're obviously, that's all laid out in the section 106 and part of the schedule. My team are consulted on that, and we always ask for it to be integrated. But sometimes the units are smaller, so they will put all the smaller units together, and then that's how we always end up with they're always in one bit. But we do encourage them to be pepper potted. That does also create a bit of a problem with management as well. The RPs don't like them pepper potted because it's all over the site, so it works both ways. But we always like it integrated. What was the other question? Disability, yes. So there is a requirement for the units to be M3, and I'll confirm that with you as well with regards to the other points.
And also potentially putting I can't believe we build houses without solar panels on to reduce energy bills. The biggest cost.
Yeah.
Biggest cost to anybody, whether you're renting or you own your own property.
Sorry, so our units that we're doing in our new build programme will be as near to net zero as we can get them. They're going to be all singing and all dancing. They're going to be kind of EPCs A, at least. With regards to these, they haven't got... I mean, the Spitfire Green ones, they were quite far down. They were already nearly built by the time we bought them. That's how desperate they were to get rid of them. But we are working with ORPs to encourage them as much as we can. The town and country site at Porthole Lane, they're all MMC. They've all got air source heat pumps, solar panels. So they've done it there. they just need to see that it works, so they do it elsewhere.
Any further questions? Mr. Jackson, at the last meeting when you came and we discussed the 5 houses at Reading Street, I think I expressed some concern that you said that developers had contacted you because they couldn't offload their affordable housing. Now you're saying that this company has now approached you because they can't unload 24, and I think you said before it's because it was such a small number at Reading Street. Now we're up to 24 and they can't offload them, and now you're saying it's 100. So with your head of planning hat on, does this mean that developers can't deliver their affordable housing on any projects that are under 300 units? So is it time to start looking at putting those size of developments on hold if developers can't deliver their affordable housing?
I don't think so, because I think at the moment it's just the market. So there are specifically housing associations who like smaller ones, and they like the Reading Street ones, but at this moment in time it wasn't right for them. So for example, West Kent Housing have picked up 8, 12, that sort of thing. So it's definitely not a no. But the Homes England grant makes it really difficult for it to be viable for them. So that's also what we're lobbying as well.
Yeah, I think it's concerning when you say that they won't pick up anything under 100 now. I think that's concerning. I mean, I've lost count of how many applications there are now for mass developments in Thanet. They're not going to do that. Okay, thank you. So, members, any recommendations for this report to Cabinet? And that's a no. So I thank Ms Jackson for coming along and presenting their report. Okay, item 10. Oh, should we get Mr. Councillor Packman back in? Okay, moving on to item 10, which is the review of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel work programme for 23-24. Do members have any questions to ask or comments to make regarding the work programme? Silence. Okay, and I know that on the we've got one subject left on subjects that were put forward, and that's the parking review. I did speak to Councillor Keane before the meeting, because I think there's some, I know Penny probably might have something to say, there's some hold-ups for the moment, but she said she was happy that it would all be sorted out by January meeting, which is the 16th of January, for her to come along and present that report on the parking review. So Penny, have you got anything you could like to tell us? Or?
I will let Mike give the update if that's okay, because he's the last person that spoke to our procurement team. Is that okay, Mike? Thank you.
Yes, so in terms of the parking strategy work, we will be in a position to award that very soon. I'm not going to give you an exact date because I might get it wrong, but the procurement process is nearly at the end, and we'll be in a position to award that. As soon as we have awarded the contract, we'll be looking for the consultant, we'll be working with the consultant to put out the dates for the public engagement, because I know that that's the bit that everyone's particularly interested in. So I think we'll be working to provide those dates as quickly as possible.
Okay, excellent. So if I can ask Charles to invite Councillor Keane or pencil her in for January the 16th to do a Cabinet presentation on the parking review. Okay, and then all members agree with that? Yeah, okay, and Councillor Davis?
Sorry, same topic, slightly off topic, moving ahead. We mentioned earlier about lack of update on levelling up and so on with Gantt, with or without Gantt charts, individuals or anything else. We were promised regular updates at each meeting. Can I suggest that we chase that up? And also, with regard to at Cabinet the other night, it was mentioned that working groups have been established amongst officers for, with regard to bringing forward the implementations, which Grant Thornton recommended to do immediately. What scrutiny is there of the work of those to ensure that Grant Thornton's recommendations are implemented? Do we get to have input on that, or could we check that out, please? Because it's an area that requires scrutiny.
Okay, I mean, with regards to the report, I will keep on to the director who's in charge of that, and hopefully for our next meeting in January there will be a report that we can all see. I think it's important that we hear what's going on. I think we were told by Ms Askew that we were told about the implementation of the new town team or whatever it's going to be called, how that was going to be set up and who was going to be on it, etc., etc. So I will keep onto it, and hopefully January we'll have something to talk about. Okay.
Thank you, because for the record, we're still no wiser about how the certain members are being appointed to that. I finally got a response from the leader, and it completely avoided the key questions, so which we'll follow through on. But I think it's important that we know where we are, because otherwise we're going to be 3 months in from the announcement of that board and absolutely nowhere forward. So.
I can assure you, and Charles will agree with me, that I have asked, and then hopefully we'll find out soon. Councillor Green.
Apart from the major topics, which I understand we can only do one at a time because of officer support, we also asked for 3 smaller reports from officers on I can't remember what they were now, but why aren't we getting them?
Okay, so the bin was one of them. Parking review is the other one, and I can't remember what the other one was, but I think we've had those now. Parking review was the last one. But then I did say in the new year we'd look at other subjects to add to the list. So we had a list, and we've gone through the list in the last few months. So come to the new year, the January 16th, I'll ask for some new topics, and we'll work from there. But the scrutiny review Councillor Butcher is undertaken is coming to an end. I will say that he has asked to open the next meeting, which is at the end of the month, open to all members to come along. I know a few of you have already expressed an interest to do that, and if you do want to come along to Councillor Butcher's meeting on the tourism review, then please let Charles know, and he'll send you an invite to that meeting. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, one topic that we agreed to look at was fly tipping and abandoned vehicles. I'm not sure if that works, but I've not seen any work being taken. Caravans, yeah.
I will add that for I'm not sure when the meeting is after January, whichever that we'll look at whichever cabinet.
Yeah, there seems to be like hundreds of abandoned caravans.
Caravans and cars and all sorts, trailers and all sorts.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps Councillor Bateman, I will definitely add that.
And then there's just one thing that I would like to add to the list, if possible, is how our residents access council services. So we have the gateway, which sits there pretty much empty on a daily basis, and a lot of feedback from our residents are they would like to have face-to-face services, maybe not full-time, but it's something that I'd like to review and have a look at. So bringing back maybe face-to-face services through housing or through Civica, really, because there are people like council tax and benefit support. So back in the day you used to be able to go into the gateway and have a chat with somebody. So yeah.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you've looked at the forward plan, I think there's something happening with East Kent services, and it's the way the service has been developed is changing. So maybe something will happen there, but I'll definitely make a note of that and see what we can do. Okay, anybody else got anything to say on that? Okay, so we just asked to agree the work programme, which we've done, and we move on to item 11, which is the forward plan exempt cabinet decision list. Unless there's something from the panel wishes to discuss, then we're asked to note the report. Okay, the report. That concludes the business for this evening's meeting. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to officers, cabinet members and officers from Democratic Services for helping us out this evening. The live stream of this meeting will now end. Thank you very much.